Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here and welcome to my guide to Alexander Floor 3 on the Savage difficulty. This guide assumes you have basic knowledge of the normal mode version of the encounter. In order to access this fight, the party leader must have cleared Floor 2 Savage for this week. The encounter drops item level 210 leg and head armor, a gob twine for upgrading left side esoterics gear, minus the belt and weapon, as well as a page 3 of a Gordian Manifesto, which can be traded in for Floor 3 Savage loot once you collect enough of them, just in case RNG's not on your side. The boss you will encounter here is the Living Liquid, same as in normal mode. This fight has a total of 4 phases, with the 4th phase having 3 mini repeating phases. To skip to a specific phase, please use the annotations in the top left hand of the video. Also, if you'd like a list of the boss's ability rotations plus some extra tips, please check the description of the video for a Google Doc. Phase 1, Living Liquid will begin in his human form, and is mostly similar to normal mode, with everything hitting harder and him using his abilities in a different order. It's also worth mentioning that this boss can crit at any point in the fight, so be prepared for occasional unexpected spike damage. The only mechanical difference here is with Protean Wave. After the initial cast, which still has the same effect, Living Liquid will then shoot an undodgeable Protean Wave at 6 random party members that deals damage with no knockback effect. This simply requires everyone to be spread out in a circle around the boss after the first Protean Wave has been dodged to make sure that no 2 players receive overlapping Protean Waves and kill each other. It's easiest to have multiple players stand together for the first Protean Wave to bait it in a single direction, then spread out for the second one. Other than this difference, just time your heals with the splashes and other AoE damage and do as much damage as possible. After about 55 seconds, the boss will become untargetable before returning for Phase 2 of the encounter. In Phase 2, the Living Liquid takes on his hand form. The cleave and the wash away mechanics are present here from normal mode, but the boss has several new attacks to deal with as well. Apologies in advance for only referencing Scholar and White Mage in our strategy, as I'm not sure what adjustments need to be made for bringing in Astrologian. After the first wash away, you'll encounter Digititis. This attack will place an effect on a random DPS, tank, and healer. The DPS will be marked for damage down, the healers will be marked for healing magic down, and tanks will be marked for vulnerability up, though it is just a physical vulnerability up to be clear. When Digititis finishes casting, these effects will activate. The damage down reduces the damage dealt by that party member by 95%, healing down by about the same, and if someone with the physical vulnerability debuff gets cleaved or auto-attacked, they are gonna die. Thankfully, these marks can be passed a single time before Digititis finishes casting, allowing you to pass the debuffs to a player they won't affect as much. We have our Scholar trade with the tank that is marked, and our White Mage trade with the DPS that's marked, using designated points around the boss in the center of the room to make the trade-offs. Which marks you use will be up to you, just find something comfortable and that people can get to in time. The person marked for physical vulnerability up should remain out of the split cleaves for the rest of the big hand part of the phase. Due to this, another popular strategy is to have a positional heavy DPS, such as a monk or dragoon, take the tank debuff so that they have an excuse to hit all of their positionals and increase your DPS. Regardless, the strategy of trading debuffs at designated points is still the same, just don't accidentally run into people as you are attempting to make the trade-off. Remember, you only get one chance to trade it off. After a few more cleaves, the boss will wash away again before splitting into 2. Have the off-tank pick up the new hand and drag both hands far away from each other. The cleaves here are the same as normal mode, adding blunt resistance stacks, but there's a new mechanic known as the Hand of Parting or the Hand of Prayer, depending on which one you get. One of the hands will begin glowing and either become a clenched fist or an open palm. If one becomes a clenched fist, you need to drag them apart, pretty much completely across the arena from each other. If one becomes an open palm, you need to drag them together, with them inside of each other's hitboxes. Failure to do this means a bunch of debuffs and a very imminent death. Which effect you can get can be manipulated, thankfully. If the hands are really far apart, they'll almost always use the open palm, while if they are close together, you will almost always get a fist. The range for this is about 25 yalms, so play with that distance between the 2 hands in order to bait out the effect that you want. With our strat, we bait out the open palm first so we can drag them together for the next mechanic, using the small circle in the center of the room as the meeting point for the hands. If you get a fist by accident, just separate them by dragging them apart and then bring them back to the center of the room for the next mechanic. The boss will cast Digititis again here. For this one, we have the healers and ranged on the same side of the bosses. A melee DPS without the DPS debuff takes the tank DPS. The White Mage trades debuffs with the DPS that's marked, and the Scholar passes the healing debuff, if they get it, to a nearby ranged DPS. Now the reason we're doing this is to make sure that the Scholar never gets the DPS debuff, especially here, as they should be primarily focused on dealing damage at this part. At the same time, Digititis is being passed around, the other small hand will cast equal concentration. When finished, it will create an 8% gap between the two hands' health bar. Your goal is to bring the health within the two hands within 4% of each other before the boss casts his next ability, Hand of Pain, which deals damage based on the difference in hand health. Switch all of your DPS, including the tank that's tanking the hand that isn't at the higher health value, to the high health hand, and use whatever cooldowns you have to burn it down. While melee LBing the higher health hand is common when learning the fight, you will ultimately want to avoid doing this, so squeeze out as much DPS out of your party as possible here. Also, beware of AoEs here, as any damage dealt to the low health hand just increases the gap that you have to close. And finally, don't be deceived by the 4% difference. While the boss's health may display, for example, 34% and 38%, this does not indicate that you have them within 4% of each other, as they could very well be something like 34.1% and 38.2%. Just go hard on the hand here and you should survive. After this, you'll get one more clenched fist since they're near each other, that's going to need some separating, one more cleave, and then phase 3 will begin. Phase 3 for the fight takes place in the Tornado phase, which is completely identical to normal mode. While there are no new mechanics here, the mechanics are much stricter, more numerous, and deal more damage. There are 6 waves of mobs we'll cover that spawn on a timer, so killing too slow may cause you to be overwhelmed. The first wave is 2 piston lubricants. You'll want to make sure to be assigning silences and or stuns on any of the piston lubricants that spawn to ensure to interrupt mucilage, their only ability. If it finishes casting, they will sprint towards the outside of the arena, which you can't let happen at all. Wave 2 consists of 3 gear lubricants and 2 drainage tethers, which are just like normal mode but hit much harder. Each tank needs to grab 1 tether and organize your defensive cooldowns to ensure survival. Wave 3 is 1 piston lubricant and 2 gear lubricants, as well as 2 ferrofluid tethers. Remember, opposite marked means go far away from each other, same mark means stand next to each other, and just don't knock your partner into the electricity or the water in the middle of the room. Wave 4 consists of 3 gear lubricants and 2 drainage tethers again. Wave 5 is 3 gear lubricants and double ferrofluid again. Wave 6 is 4 piston lubricants. Make sure to assign stuns to each of the 4, and really for the entire phase, try to have someone applying heavies to the mob as often as possible. Scholars and summoners can be great for this, but other jobs are capable of it too. Just don't ask your black mage to spam Blizzard 1 please. After the final wave, or some time has passed, the boss will reappear and the final phase will begin. At this point, it's best to have the boss hovering at around the 61% mark to ensure you'll beat in rage, though it is possible to have him much lower. The final phase of this encounter consists of 3 mini phases that are separated by the boss casting Cascade. Cascade itself hits incredibly hard, so arrange mitigation tools for each of them. It's also recommended to tank swap after every Cascade, as the boss cleaves place blunt resistance stacks on anyone they hit now. After Cascade number 1, the boss will cast a triple ferrofluid. Carefully spread out so you can accurately see who you're tethered to and either run away or stand together, just like in the Tornado phase. If the main tank is being pushed back by a ++ or -- ferrofluid, carefully aim them between 2 puddles so it's easy for them to either reposition the boss in the center of the room or between 2 of the puddles. The liquid then casts 3 splashes before using Sluice into Protean Wave. Assign positions for Sluice and positions to spread out for the undodgeable Protean Wave afterwards. You'll also need AoE heals here between the 2 skills to ensure no one dies from the Sluice into undodgeable Protean Wave. A size, Indomitability, Swift Cast Medica 2, any of these things work. Sluice also targets a lot more people here, so make sure you're adequately spread out. After some more splashes and cleaves, the boss will cast Sluice into Digititis. This time, Digititis marks 2 DPS with the debuff, so we just have each healer call out which DPS they are taking when the debuffs go out. One of the 2 remaining DPS that isn't marked takes a debuff off the marked tank. Just be ready to react after Sluice markers disappear. After another cleave, the boss will use his second Cascade and start the next mini phase. After Cascade number 2, Liquid will mark one of the 2 healers before throwing a hand at them. This will stun them and anyone nearby, so make sure not to stand near the marked healer. This hand will shortly after grab the healer and attempt to drag them to the outside of the arena. Your goal here is to destroy this hand as fast as possible. Set up a stun rotation and have someone place a heavy effect on it as well. Also, make sure the healers position the hand so that it won't go through one of the puddles in the arena. If it does, the hand gets a massive regen and likely means a death of your group. For cascade number 2, we usually cast our LB3 the boss, plus the hand, to help speed things up. And don't forget, Liquid himself is still using cleaves and splashes during all of this, so the other healer needs to stay on their toes. Free the healer, and after the second set of splashes, prepare to do another Digititis. After Digititis, the boss will do 6 splashes in a row, so watch blood for blood timings and be prepared for big AoE heals. One more cleave and it's on the cascade number 3. In Cascade 3, each of the puddles now has a tornado sticking out of it, and each will perform different mechanics. Shortly into the phase, all 3 tornadoes will begin performing a slew of mechanics simultaneously with the boss. In this image, we can identify which tornado does what. This will be the usual layout of the puddles throughout all the last phase, though their actual position is rotated on the map randomly. 2 are closer together, while 1 is opposite of the narrow safe section. The top tornado in this example shoots out 2 large protean waves at the party one at a time, which we have all the healers and DPS stand close to make dodging it easier. The one on the bottom right in this example places a drainage tether on the group, which your off tank should intercept and use defensive cooldowns on to survive. The final tornado is placing a debuff known as Throttle on party members, which instantly kills them if it isn't removed with Asuna or other similar spells. We also position the boss to be facing the section above the Throttle tornado. As the second protean wave is going out and drainage is exploding, the boss will also mark 3 sets of ferro fluids you'll need to quickly react to. If your main tank is knocked away from the boss, have them wait for the next cleave, then reposition the boss in the center of the room facing the same direction as they were before. At this point, one of the tornadoes also starts shooting contaminates, which deal about 5,000 to 6,000 damage to random party members. Just don't let people die to it. It's entirely possible to get selected 2-3 times in a row with it. After 2 more throttles go out, the tornado on the bottom left will spawn an Embolus orb that slowly floats towards the boss. If it touches any player or the boss, it will explode, dealing massive damage and giving the boss a permanent damage boost for the rest of the fight, if it doesn't kill you outright. We simply bait it towards the center of the room, then move him straight into the section of the room he was facing, which is directly above that same tornado. You can also position the boss just above the tornado at the start to bait the orb towards the outside of the room, then drag him towards the top tornado. The boss will then do Sluice plus top tornado protean wave, plus the drainage tether tornado, plus another Embolus spawn. As Sluice is casting, have the main tank run towards the center of the room to prevent the orb from hitting the boss. Give them plenty of space, stay spread for Sluice, have the off tank handle the drainage tether, and then get back on the boss. He'll do another cleave before going into cascade number 4. At this point, you've seen the whole fight and just need to repeat your performance from cascades 1 through 3 on cascades 4 and 6. The only major difference is you won't have a caster LB3 for the second liquid limb unless some crazy things went wrong, so you'll need to use a lot more cooldowns to ensure you kill it before it reaches the edge of the arena. At approximately 12 minutes and 43 seconds into the fight, the boss will hit the party with his Enrage Cascade, which instantly kills the entire party. Thank you for watching my guide to Alexander Floor 3 on the Savage difficulty. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and check out the rest of the videos on my YouTube channel. Anyway, thank you for watching, I'll see you all in the next video, and until then, take care.
Ever forging all new fantasies, creating more mess direct. Through this brick machine with all of the rest, DC dying.